The Galactic Council gathered in the Grand Chamber, their towering forms casting long shadows under the glow of the suspended light orbs. Representatives from 100 star systems had come together for one purpose: to decide the fate of Earth. The voices of various alien species filled the hall, some hissing, others rumbling, each expressing their growing concern over humanity. "They are reckless," one of the elder beings declared, his translucent skin shifting colors with irritation. "Their history is filled with war, defiance, and unpredictable aggression." A reptilian envoy from the Drakthar Alliance tapped his claws against the marble-like table. "They do not respect authority. They challenge rules, bend laws, and defy the natural order of the Council." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The humans had proven themselves resourceful, adaptive, and too stubborn for their own good. Despite having joined the Council only a century ago, they had already disrupted delicate interstellar politics. Their rapid technological advancements, their refusal to abide by the Council's slow-moving policies, and their unpredictable nature made them a threat. An aged diplomat from the Vorla Dominion, a race known for their strategic wisdom, sighed deeply. "It is decided, then. Earth must be banned from the Council. Cut them off from all trade, all alliances, all resources. Let them fend for themselves. Without our aid, they will crumble." The decision was swift. A final vote passed with overwhelming support. Within hours, a formal declaration was sent across the galactic network. Earth had been exiled. The reaction from humanity was unexpected. There was no response. No pleas, no outrage, no threats. They simply went silent. For months, observers stationed near Earth reported nothing unusual. Trade routes leading to human colonies were severed, forcing them into isolation. The Council waited, expecting Earth to beg for re-entry. But no message ever came. Then, something changed. A deep space monitoring station picked up an anomaly near the Sol system. A signal, brief, encrypted, unlike anything seen before, flashed across the void. Attempts to decode it failed. The signal repeated irregularly in different parts of the galaxy. A young analyst within the Council's intelligence division reported something even more troubling. Disappearing ships. Independent traders, smugglers, even rogue mercenaries who once did business with humans had begun vanishing. No wreckage, no distress calls. They simply ceased to exist. A few members of the Council grew uneasy, but the majority dismissed these reports as coincidence. "Let them struggle," they said. "It will not last." One voice stood in opposition. Varkesh, an old and respected diplomat from the Auxiliary Syndicate. He had studied human history, their wars, their rise from a primitive species to an interstellar power. He had warned the Council before, urging caution when dealing with Earth. Now, he warned them again. "This silence is unnatural," he insisted during a private meeting. "Humans are not the kind to fade into the dark. They are planning something." His warnings were ignored. The Council had already made up its mind, but far beyond their watchful eyes, something was happening. On the dark side of the moon, construction facilities churned in secret, building something massive. Deep in the asteroid belts, hidden shipyards produced warships unlike any the galaxy had seen. On forgotten colonies, soldiers trained in complete isolation, preparing for a war that had not yet begun. Humanity was not broken. They were waiting. And soon, the galaxy would understand what it meant to underestimate Earth. The silence from Earth was unsettling. Months had passed since the Galactic Council had declared humanity an outcast, and yet there had been no response. No pleas, no negotiations, no attempts to regain favor. The Council had expected desperation. Instead, they were met with nothing. Trade ships that once carried goods to human colonies were rerouted, leaving entire sectors isolated. Resources were cut off. Access to Council technology was denied. Without the support of the wider galaxy, Earth was supposed to fall into chaos. That was the plan. That was what always happened to exiled civilizations. But Earth did not collapse. Reports began surfacing from the edges of explored space, whispers of human activity in places they should not be. Ships that had no registered origin, mining operations on barren worlds, distorted transmissions that no one could decrypt. The Council dismissed these as rumors, the last desperate acts of a doomed species. Then the disappearances began. Independent traders who had previously done business with humans started vanishing. At first, it was small, 1 or 2 ships going off course, their signals lost in the vastness of space. But then the numbers grew. Entire convoys, mercenary fleets, black market dealers, gone without a trace. The Council's security forces conducted investigations, but no wreckage was ever found. It was as if these ships had been erased from existence. Among the few who took these events seriously was Varkesh, a veteran diplomat who had studied humanity for decades. He had always argued that humans were different, that their unpredictability made them dangerous. And now his concerns were growing. He called for an emergency session within the Council, urging them to investigate the matter further. This is not the behavior of a species in decline, he warned. Humans are not surrendering to their fate. They are adapting. They are preparing. But the Council was arrogant. They have no allies, one of the representatives scoffed. No resources, no technology beyond what we allowed them. What could they possibly be planning? Varkesh leaned forward. That is precisely what we must uncover, because if we wait too long, we may not like the answer. His words were met with laughter. The Council saw no reason to fear a species that had been cut off from galactic civilization. To them, humans were an inconvenience at best, a forgotten race at worst. They had more important matters to handle: interplanetary trade disputes, border skirmishes between rival empires, and the politics of power that had governed the galaxy for centuries. But while they ignored the warnings, the truth was becoming impossible to deny. In the depths of uncharted space, beyond the eyes of the Council, humanity was changing. They were no longer just the outcasts of the galaxy. They were becoming something else. Something the Council would soon regret underestimating. The Galactic Council remained blind to the storm forming in the darkness. They had cast Earth aside, expecting it to fade into irrelevance. But whispers of human activity continued to spread, quiet at first, then growing louder. Strange readings appeared on long-range scanners, power surges in dead sectors, bursts of energy in abandoned systems. Merchant ships reported seeing shadows moving through the void, vessels that appeared and vanished in seconds. Smugglers who once dealt with humans spoke of secret bases, entire worlds hidden from the Council's watchful eyes. But when questioned, they refused to speak further. Some out of fear, others because those who had spoken before had mysteriously disappeared. Then came the first undeniable sign. A distress call from an unregistered cargo ship echoed across Council channels. The message was garbled, filled with static, but a few words were clear. They came from nowhere. Not Council, not pirates. Different. Silence followed. The ship never reached its destination. No debris, no wreckage, just another vessel swallowed by the unknown. For the first time, the Council began to feel unease. Patrols were sent to investigate, but they found nothing. No survivors, no evidence, just empty space where entire fleets had once traveled safely. Varkesh knew this was no accident. He had studied human history. The Galactic Council could no longer ignore the growing unease spreading through its ranks. Reports of vanished ships, encrypted transmissions, and sightings of unidentified vessels had become too frequent to dismiss. Yet the Council still clung to the belief that humanity was weak, scattered, and incapable of true defiance. But in the depths of space, something stirred. The station that had detected the mysterious fleet remained silent. No distress signal, no debris, nothing to suggest what had happened. The Council sent a reconnaissance vessel to investigate. It arrived at the coordinates, its crew scanning the darkness for any sign of the missing outpost. Then, without warning, their sensors failed. All communication with the Council ceased. Moments later, A single transmission was received before the ship disappeared forever. The message was just 3 words: "They are here." Panic rippled through the council. Dozens of vessels had been lost without explanation. The edges of known space were no longer safe. Trade routes had become silent graveyards, and in the shadows, humanity was moving unseen. Varkesh, the only one who had warned them from the beginning, stood before the council once more. His voice was calm, but his words carried the weight of a terrible realization. "You thought banning Earth would weaken them. You thought they would fall apart without us. But they did not need our resources. They did not need our approval. They needed only one thing, a reason. And we gave it to them." The council chamber erupted in arguments, but it was too late. Because at that moment, across a dozen sectors, ships with no allegiance, no transponders, and no official record began to decloak. The hidden fleet was real. Humanity had not been exiled. They had simply been waiting. The council's arrogance had blinded them for too long. The warnings had been ignored, the disappearances dismissed, the strange readings brushed aside as anomalies. But now, the truth was undeniable. Humanity had returned. Across multiple star systems, unidentified fleets emerged from the void. Their ships were unlike anything seen before, sleek, black as the abyss, equipped with technology that should have been impossible for an isolated species to develop. Silent, efficient, and precise, they moved like predators, appearing where they were least expected, striking without warning, then vanishing before the council could react. Trade hubs went dark. Military patrols disappeared. Strategic outposts that had stood for centuries were reduced to wreckage in minutes. No survivors, no distress signals, just silence. The council convened in an emergency session, the grand chamber filled with fear and uncertainty. The old confidence was gone, replaced by whispered doubts and unspoken terror. "This is not possible," one of the high-ranking members muttered. They had nothing. No allies, no resources. How could they build this? Varkesh stood among them, watching their fear grow. He had tried to warn them. He had studied humanity's history, their wars, their resilience, and he knew what they were facing. "They did what they always do," he said quietly. "They adapted. They built in secret. And now, they are showing us what exile truly means." A transmission cut through the chamber, overriding all security protocols. The room fell into eerie silence as a voice echoed through the hall. A human voice. "We remember." Then, every screen in the council's capital displayed the same image. An armada, larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, advancing from the depths of uncharted space. The council had believed that exiling humanity would break them. They had been wrong. The first planet fell in less than an hour. A council-controlled colony, heavily fortified, shielded by defense satellites, and patrolled by warships, should have been untouchable. And yet, when the human fleet arrived, it was as if the defenses weren't even there. The attack came without warning. Black, unmarked ships materialized from the void, moving with impossible speed. The planetary shields, designed to withstand weeks of bombardment, collapsed within minutes. Automated defenses fired wildly into the darkness, but the human fleet was already inside the perimeter. By the time the Council's reinforcements arrived, the colony's command center was silent. No distress signals, no survivors, just a single broadcast, looping endlessly across every frequency. A simple message, written in the galactic standard. "You exiled us. We built an empire. Now you will see what exile truly means." Panic spread through the council like wildfire. Fleet commanders scrambled to organize defenses. Governors abandoned their posts. Trade routes were declared unsafe. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Council, the rulers of known space, felt fear. In desperation, they attempted diplomacy. A delegation was sent to the last known human-controlled system, hoping to negotiate peace. They never returned. The only response was another transmission. This time, a live feed. A council envoy, trembling as he stood before a shadowed figure, clearly human. The envoy spoke, his voice cracking. "What do you want?" A pause. Then the human's voice, calm, cold, unwavering. "What was denied to us?" The screen cut to black. The council had once believed that humanity would crumble without their support. Now, they realized the truth. Humanity had not just survived. They had evolved into something unstoppable. The Galactic Council had ruled for thousands of years, believing itself untouchable. It had shaped the laws of the universe, dictated the fate of civilizations, and exiled those it deemed unworthy. It had thought itself wise, powerful, eternal. But now it stood on the brink of destruction. The human fleet had torn through their defenses like a storm through brittle glass. Planets fell, fortresses crumbled, fleets vanished into the abyss. The Council had underestimated humanity, believing their exile would lead to their downfall. Instead, it had given them something far more dangerous, a reason to rise. Entire sectors had gone dark, swallowed by the unseen hand of the human war machine. Communication hubs that once linked the great empires of the galaxy were now silent. Trade routes that had thrived for centuries were abandoned, littered with wreckage. The Council's fleets, once symbols of unquestioned power, were now hunted. On the Council's homeworld, panic reigned. The streets of the capital were filled with frightened diplomats, desperate officials, and terrified civilians. The great halls where leaders had once dictated the fate of species now echoed with the sounds of whispered fear. At the center of it all stood Varkesh. He had warned them. He had studied humanity's history, understood their resilience, their ability to adapt, their terrifying potential for war. He had tried to make the Council see reason, but they had refused to listen. Now it was too late. The Council's last great fleet had been deployed, a desperate attempt to stop the inevitable. It was the largest force ever assembled. Thousands of warships, battle stations, and dreadnoughts. If humanity could be defeated, this was the moment. And yet, as the fleet moved into formation, the enemy remained unseen. No attacks, no movement, nothing. The silence was unbearable. Then, without warning, the stars themselves seemed to shift. Dark shapes emerged from the void, ships so advanced, so impossibly engineered, that they defied all understanding. They moved with terrifying precision, cutting through the void like shadows given form. No markings, no transponders, no weaknesses. The battle began. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. Human ships moved like ghosts, weaving through enemy formations, striking without warning, vanishing before counterattacks could land. Council warships, mighty vessels that had ruled the stars for generations, were torn apart in moments. Their shields failed. Their weapon systems went dark. Their crews screamed into the void, unanswered. It was over before it had even begun. Back on the Council homeworld, the leaders watched in horror as their fleet was erased. The last defenders of their once great empire, gone in minutes. Then, the final transmission arrived. A single human message, displayed on every screen, broadcasted on every frequency, burned into the minds of every surviving Council member. We were never weak. You were never strong. This galaxy belongs to us now. And then the sky darkened. From the depths of space, the full force of humanity's empire arrived. The Council, the rulers of the galaxy, had only moments left to understand what had happened. They had exiled humanity, and in doing so, they had created their own downfall.